Welcome to the Four Visions Market Podcast, a space built on the principles of integrity and reciprocity. Together, we will engage in thought-provoking conversations about plant medicines, why these plants are coming out of the rainforests, jungles, and mountains after thousands of years, and what it means to be in right relationship with the ancestral wisdom cultures and guardians of these traditions. I'm your host, Mariah, founder and director of Four Visions Market. This podcast is the natural evolution in our commitment to providing you, our tribe, with incredible resources to support you on your healing journey through plant medicines. Welcome home. Welcome back, Four Visions family. I'm so thrilled to introduce our guest today, Nadine Artemis, the author of 2 books, including Renegade Beauty and Holistic Dental Care. Nadine is a gifted aromacologist and visionary. She is the creator of Living Libations, an exquisite line of organic, wild-crafted, non-GMO serums, elixirs, and essential oils for those seeking the purest of the pure botanical natural health and beauty products. Nadine opened the first full concept of aromatherapy store in North America when she was 22 years old. Described by Alanis Morissette as a true sense visionary, Nadine crafts elegant formulations and healing creations from rare botanicals that have skin glowing around the world. Her concept of Renegade Beauty encourages effortlessness and inspires people to rethink the conventional notions of beauty and wellness. Welcome, Nadine. It is such an honor to have you on the show. I was sharing before we started, I've been a fan of Living Libations for more than a few years now and have admired your journey from afar as I really just see you as a true goddess and wisdom carrier of the plants and what it means to live a radiant life. And it's a tremendous pleasure to sit with you today. So warm welcome to the Four Visions podcast.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here.
Yes, it's been so beautiful just getting to prepare for this interview and get to dive a little bit deeper into the work that you do. And I've had the opportunity to listen to some podcasts and read some articles, and you really have devoted your life to this vision and this mission. And it's so beautiful and inspiring to me as a young woman watching a woman who has really just committed herself to this path and to this beautiful platform that you have curated and the community that you tend to, as well as the way that you really hold this vision of beauty and living a life in beauty and inside and out and through our connection to nature. So with that, I would love to open the conversation with a question for you in regards to what is your message? What is the vision that you hold that inspires you to walk your path and to do everything that you do and really moves you forward in the work that you are doing?
I think on a simple level, it's just feeling good, feels good. And so I like people to feel good. And I feel like one of those ways in is through beauty, sort of that beauty with a capital B, feeling of beauty, the beauty of the planet, watching a sunrise and being immersed in the beauty, which I feel like in those moments when we can engage with them too, then it is beautiful, because in those moments there's a lot also falls away because we're in that engagement with nature. And I feel like when we can tap into nature in ways that we may not have imagined, but are really right there, that we can infuse and revive ourselves. And so I like to harness that connection and infuse, just bring that accessibility sort of to nature into people's lives, and know that engaging with the elements like the earth, water, air, the sun, just makes life better, makes life more beautiful, might make you feel more beautiful. Yeah. So how do we harness that? And that's what I like. Yeah. That's what I just love to dive into. And I feel like so many things sort of flow from there that make meaning for my life.
Mm. I love that. And that's very resonant with my why as well and our platform, and just really believing wholeheartedly in this reconnection to nature. And there's so many ways to do that, to reinvigorate ourselves and remind ourselves of our inherent interconnectivity to life itself. And that's, I think, one of the reasons why I resonate so deeply with the platform that you've created, and everything that Living Libations stands for, because you feel that. You feel like true juiciness and aliveness in your products, in your mission, in your platform. So it's beautiful to hear in your own words where that all comes from. And tell us a little bit about how your journey with nature, herbalism, plant medicine, in this sense, all started. Did you grow up around this type of relationship to nature and beauty? Is this something that blossomed in your early teens, I would assume, since you started, your first store at 22? Tell us a little bit about how your journey brought you to the path you were walking.
I luckily had a childhood that was steeped, a little bit in nature. Just even from, we had a beautiful backyard and huge trees, and I was always happy outside and sitting on the grass. And we also had a cottage, which is near where we live now, but just being able to like be on a lake of fresh water, and we had the like forest to the back, and able to just, wander around the forest all day, just be at the lake, and just like really engaging with nature that way. And I just remember like even just, yeah, staring at leaves and grass, or like poking around the dirt. I mean, it's so important. Even my school, which still exists, had such an amazing forest and a creek. Of course, we weren't supposed to go to the creek. We would go to the creek. We would have water fights in the creek. We would build forts in the forest. So I found even that was infusing my childhood. Unfortunately, that forest now is a parking lot at that school. But so I feel like that nature exposure was amazing. And I would concoct and mix dirt and crush petals. Didn't really amount to much, but I was always mixing things, or I would mix things and then put them in like little shells for packaging and things like that. Or at home, when I wasn't in nature, like outside, I would just open up my mom's bathroom and mix her, joy perfume with the skull and crossbones things under the sink or things like that. So I did have an inclination to mix. But then I got a little more productive. When I was in grade 9, I was able to do a science fair project, and I chose perfumery, which was, all I had were just these bottles of synthetic things. I didn't even really know the difference between, like, we weren't calling it synthetic back then. This is in the 80s. But I was reading a book, and the history and the mystery of perfumes, and it talked about the distillation of the plants and flowers. Like, we didn't even really know that back then. And because the perfume that you got just was so removed from, well, it is totally removed from nature, even though they pretend that the stuff's like roses and stuff. Anyway, and it just said that, you could find these things called essential oils at the health food store. So then we drove, to the big city, the health food store. And then that was really neat, as I got my first whiffs of like jasmine, lemongrass, orange. And again, I didn't have the vocabulary, but they spoke to me in such a different way. And so for that project, I remade Nina Ricci's L'air de Temps with essential oils, and it was good. It was a good project, got a good mark. But then, going through just having just total teen life in the 80s, and like, I was just, it's I don't know if it's like every teen life, but we were just so immersed, it felt like, in makeup and doing hair. And we'd have a long 10-hour bus ride, and I kind of give people little makeovers and stuff like that. It was just fun. And then thinking, oh, the Body Shop came out, you think it's natural. So then I'm at university, and luckily I had to pass by this little health food store every day. It was like in a home. It was called Grains and Beans and Things. And I got such amazing books from there. And one of them was about reading labels at the supermarket. And it was like a really thick book. And it was so eye-opening, because like, you look at that stuff like your whole childhood, but you don't know all the words, and especially on the back of like body care products. It's a very foreign language, all that synthetic chemical stuff, but it was just like sort of the tricks of the trade, or like all brand, probably it was made out of like a cardboard, practically, I can't remember now, but the fiber was definitely didn't seem edible. Or like white sugar is, I mean, brown sugar is white sugar with molasses, or there could be secondary ingredients on a can of soup, but you're not going to get them. It might say cheese, but then the cheese might have like 5 ingredients, or you know what I mean? So it's just really unpacking all of that. And then that just like made me realize that body shop stuff was just like another petroleum promised land, like just
Yep.
total BS, you know. But the cool thing is that was like the moment where it's like, oh, I'm gonna make stuff. And it gave me like a real purpose to concoct things rather than just what I was doing when I was like 5. So I just started making like everything, perfume, creams, lip balms, things for eczema, things for spider veins. And I was bringing together like, because I got other books from the health food store, just like one was from a European naturopath. It's called How to Get Well. He also wrote a book called Swedish Beauty Secrets. And they were thrilling. It talked about dry brushing and, or like if you have a headache, like it could be constipation. And I'm like, oh my God, that makes so much sense. You know what I mean? It was just like a whole other way into the body. And then at university, luckily, I was able to like, study realms of things like, different, like I wrote my thesis on the female orgasm through like Western culture. So that was fascinating. And just seeing and writing about the ways, like the things we did to our body were done to our body in the name of health, beauty, medication. I mean, it's kind of phenomenal. Whether it's like older history things or sort of from the 19th century, you know what I mean? Just all the ways. And then just realizing there's just so many other ways into the body and how to care for it and its systems and its lymph. And, it could start with like not applying chemicals in the name of beauty. That just doesn't make sense when,
Mhm.
you might get a temporary lubrication or like, moisture from a cream, but just to have it affect, downstream, your liver, your endocrine system, like it just doesn't make sense.
Mhm.
So I was really happy to be creating and concocting, and like, people were loving it. So, and then also it was like getting the ingredients, because that was like, then I'd read, books from the 18th century or older aromatherapy books, and there'd be oils that I couldn't find, and I had to get a whiff of what did that smell like, or why were they choosing that in ancient Egypt? Like, what did that smell like to them? So then I was like, writing distillers and finding around the world, just like the distillers, which I'm still working with so many of them, well, all of them today, plus more. And, finding just these gems where even like the lavender or the bergamot that I would get in was just like so beyond what was available at the health food store at that time.
Yeah.
So then, of course, I had to find them all, and then working with that palette. And then, 6 months after I graduated from university, I had opened up the store, and it was so fun. We had like this beautiful scent bar. It was all mosaic, and, we had over 100 oils you could buy by the drop, or you could come in and have a perfume made, that kind of thing. That's where I met
Mm.
Alanis. We had a midnight smelling party after one of her concerts in Toronto once. And that was really fun.
Wow.
Just like smelling till about 4 in the morning.
Wow, that's so amazing and so interesting to hear. And I'm just like really tuning into what it was like for you in that time period of really pioneering this, way back into natural beauty care. And I now, there are alternative beauty lines popping up left and right, but I'm sure it was a lot different back then, and that you really had to listen to your intuition and trust, that inner calling and that connection with the plants. Were there any experiences that you had where you've maybe doubted whether this was the path for you, or you came up against a lot of backlash, criticism, or did you interact with the mainstream beauty care industry at all in your initial stages? Maybe you could share a little bit about that, what that process was like.
Yeah, well, sometimes I'm amazed because there wasn't the internet. So just like the research, I mean, I was good at research, and you learn a lot at university on it, but I was like, how did that even happen? But I remember like I made a little letterhead with, some Egyptian hieroglyphs and just like wrote letters all over the world, it felt like, and waited for the samples to come in. We did get, when I opened the store, I mean, we got a lot of press and, I did, television and newspapers and that kind of stuff. I mean, so there was that kind of interaction, but I've never really talked to anybody in the beauty industry
Uh-huh.
or, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, you just
I don't
gone
even know
your
who they
own
are.
way
I
and
just get, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And it's definitely been with its challenges, obviously, just like, life, business. But I don't, yeah, I feel like it's the creations and the formulations have just always been so beautifully received.
Yes. Well, they're powerful and they're so unique. And, the experiences I've had with your products, they just feel, so healing and just that aromatherapy aspect is so powerful and potent. And hearing you describe the ways in which you have searched for the scents and really, been so vigilant to find the exact sourcing and that particular region for each oil and everything that goes into it, it definitely makes sense because some of the products that I've gotten the opportunity to experience, they feel magical. They feel like they're like out of this world, And of course, I love natural beauty. I love natural products in general, but there's something about your products that are like they're magical. They're like out of this world. So you really feel that love and dedication and passion that you pour into the curation of your line.
Thank you so much. And I really feel like it's easy when you just have the best ingredients, because that's the perfection and bringing those together. So, you know, really thank the farmers and the growers and the distillers that are bringing that quality to their work. I'm so thankful for that.
Mhm. Wow, beautiful. So we'll circle back a little bit more towards the end about this concept of beauty and renegade beauty. I want to touch a little bit more on that, but let's get into some of the other topics that I was really excited to talk to you about. And the first one is our relationship to grandfather's son. And I was so excited to learn that this is one of the topics that you like to talk about and teach on when it comes to sun exposure and healthy relationship with the sun. And because for me, as a very fair skinned person, it's something that I've always struggled with. And I love the sun. I love to feel the sun's rays directly on my skin without any sunblock or any type of UV protection, but I do burn easily. I've obviously been suffered a few bad sunburns that have left me cautious, and so I'm so excited to pick your brain a little bit about how we can cultivate a really healthy relationship with the sun and be in harmony with the sun in a way that supports us and all of the benefits that solar light and solar energy can give to us, as well as allows us to just be more conscious and educated about how to have better practices when it comes to protection of our skin. So with that, I would love to just let you take it away and hear, whenever you feel called to share with us and educate us on today in this regard.
Yeah, so it's the sun. There's a lot of fear around it, but it really is responsible and creating and sustaining all life on the planet. So we are just like a plant has a photosynthesis system that's designed to engage with the sun's rays. There are flowers that are heliocentric. Meaning they'll follow the sun throughout the day. They like literally turn, open, blossom. It's like a clock. It signals so many things. And our bodies are exactly the same. The cell in our toes knows the time of day. Well, generally speaking, I mean, unless you're under like fluorescent lights in the middle of the night, it might get, the cells start to get confused. And there's rays to the sun, like the rainbow, red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet, the Roy G. Biv, the rainbow. So that's the full spectrum. And the violet is the top of the rainbow. It's the the last ray that gets strong in the day. So, right, we're building up. You have the red and the orange in the beginning. I mean, the red's always there. It's like a base note. And then the other colors build throughout the day. And then the UV kicks in at a certain point. It depends where you are on the planet because it has to do with longitude, latitude, blah, blah, blah. So just knowing that, first of all, there's a few, times in the day when we can engage with the sun that have nothing to do with the UV tanning
Mhm.
situation.
Mhm.
So like that's a great place to start, and that begins to prepare the body and the skin to be with it when it's stronger. So
Okay, so you can like
ideally, if you can
strengthen
start
your
your day,
tolerance.
yeah, your skin, some people call it like strengthening your solar callus, so to speak, but you're getting, because if we've just been inside, and under our synthetic lighting, then it's like a muscle that you have to work out. So the skin is like, oh yeah, here we are, back in the light again. So the morning, so I love using this app. It's called D Minder, and it tracks your vitamin D, which is great because that is like a living thing in your body. You can't just take a bit of vitamin D and then you're done. It's like you need to keep fulfilling the vitamin D situation in your body. And we don't get a lot through diet currently because we're not eating like organ meats and sardines, which that was some source of it. So, and also what we get from the sun is a different type of vitamin D, and it's like a water soluble form, and it interacts with the cholesterol, and it helps to create a very healthy cholesterol sulfate. And then that, obviously, there's a whole bunch of biochemical things that happen because of that, and because we need that. We need that sulfate situation. There's antimicrobial peptides that are released. There's like amino acids, there's hormones. But engaging with the sun, especially in the morning at sunrise, sunset, that's also engaging the part of the brain called the suprachiasmatic nucleus, which is like so important for our circadian rhythms. So the sun's all about the circadian rhythm. So if you can wake up and, see the sunrise, I know, it's cloudy some days and all of that. So it's like hard to do it consistently. But if you can, or just get outside in the morning light, even if it's cloudy, even if it's raining, there is illumination that is like, telling your body stuff that's really important, and stuff that we're going to be learning for the next 100 years. Like, oh, glad we were going outside because that's activating, blah, blah, blah. So let's say it's July. So it's awesome. Right now, you can see it's like winter out there. But let's say, so it's July. We know it's sunny. We know there's going to be a sunrise at like 6 in the morning. And then there's a whole time before the UV is coming. So maybe in July here, it's going to come, the first UV is coming around 9 o'clock, 8:30, 9 o'clock. So that time between like 6 a.m. and 9 o'clock is very juicy. And again, you don't have to be at that whole time. But I mean, on a great day, if like it's a weekend or something, I love it because I'll just be at sunrise and I'll go right into, I mean, I'm down on my lake, I'm swimming, and then I can just take that morning light and go right into the tanning light. So when you get more red light exposure in the morning, and that's what's great is now we have so many different variations on red light devices, which I think are really good to have in the home. And so that prepares the body and the skin to receive the UV as well. So that's a good thing to do. And then also, you want to start in the spring, and then, depending on, how much tanning you've done before, or you're also, the D-Minder app has this, it's called the Fitzpatrick scale, and it's just about 5 skin types. So I think if you're like, let's say Mediterranean, you're probably like, a 3 or a 4 on that scale, or Irish kind of being 1. But we all have melanin, and then so activating our melanin, which is what's making a tan, activates like our immune system. And melanin is such a beautiful thing in the body, and that's like a whole thing that, there's books written about just the melanin alone. And so we want to get that engaged and get that going. And when you have like a good baseline tan, generally speaking, you also know your vitamin D sufficient. But the good thing about the D-Minder app is I can throw that on, so I'm now the UV is coming. I can see exactly what time the UV is gonna hit the sun in my area, because it's gonna shift each day, right, as the sun revolves around the earth. And then it's gonna calculate. So that hour in the sun, or I could put the cloud coverage at 10% or whatever it is, and it will calculate the vitamin D. Or if I take a supplement in the winter, I can add that. So I always have a running total of like the vitamin D situation in my body, which is really good because vitamin D is responsible for so many functions and the gene expression and gene regulation, just everything. It's essential. We also know that, to be vitamin D sufficient, you're going to ward off about, there's like 3,000 studies showing how vitamin D sufficiency prevents like this disease, that disease, breast cancer. If your vitamin D is sufficient, you'll have about a 50% chance less of developing breast cancer, for example. Mm-hmm. Not drinking is only about a 10% reduction.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
So I always say you could be in the sun and have your margarita. The sun is actually what's really important here. And if you can, you really want to have as much skin exposed as possible. So, I mean, we live, we've got 200 acres. It's totally private. And we're so lucky for that. I actually, when we're away, I'm kind of like, oh, when I have to wear a bathing suit and tan in that, I'm just like, oh, it's just, I can't really handle it anymore. But anyway, it's fun not to have tan lines and just to tan the whole situation. And, Ivy, we have like spots all over our land for like where the sun comes during the different times of years and like wind shelters and that kind of thing. Cool. Or even right now in the middle of winter, because there's no vitamin D right now. It's coming back around mid-February to this area. I will just like, if it's a sunny day, open the windows and put like a beanbag cushion right in front and just like get that sun in, even though there's no tan, it's still very, very beneficial. So to build up, like for your situation, you're going to have so you could look on the D-Minder and put in your location, and you could see if you got vitamin D in your area right now. Because I don't know if it leaves your area in winter. It might, because you're in Northern Cal. I think it does, but it will be coming back now. It's the end of January, so it's probably coming back to your area any minute, any day now. So then you start slowly but surely, right? And just whenever it's out. So try and get a little time before the UV comes in, get that red light. And then, depending right now, like February in your area, like it's going to be pretty weak. I'm sure you could even get a half hour, an hour in and not burn. But everybody's got to figure that out, right? And as soon as your skin gets a bit pink, it's coming. So when we use things like sunscreen, we are desensitizing ourselves to our own body's mechanisms that warn us to get out of the sun. We certainly don't want to get burnt by the sun. But you'll know when you're working, your body in the sun, you start working up. And once you have that base tan, getting burnt is harder. And it's like kind of if you're just like, so pale all the time, and then you go to the Cuba for like a week, right? And you've just been like indoors for a whole year, and then you're out in the sun. Like that's kind of going to be a crash course. You're probably going to burn. So you want to build it up into it or whatever. And then yeah, obviously, although I really can it's amazing because I used to be I'm not like that. I'm not a Mediterranean situation. It's like French, English, European, kind of on the paler side. But it's really since I've been really mapping this out the past 20 years, I think I have never been burned, except I was burning when I was a kid, and it was like sunscreen, and there's so much confusion about the messages, or going in and out of chlorine pools with sunscreen on, all that kind of stuff. Not so good for the skin. So you got to really know your body, build it up, and then your immune system will get stronger throughout the spring as well, which is really good. And then when we're also using sunscreen, besides there's so many chemicals that we wouldn't want to put on our body. So that's one thing, and there's endocrine disruptors or ingredients like oxybenzene, which is banned in Europe, but it's in North American sunscreens. But for example, that's non-carcinogenic until it's exposed to sunlight. And it's like one of the main active ingredients. And it's an endocrine disruptor and may affect fertility and blah, blah, blah. So there's all that. But the main issue when we're applying sunscreen is that then now we're receiving the solar rays separated. So the UVA is separated from its ultraviolet partner UVB. UVB is the vitamin D generating ray, and we're totally cut off from that with sunscreen. But sunscreen allows in the UVA, but studies show that when UVA is isolated, that can cause like skin damage. That's sort of like, if you're a trucker going westward every day at like 5, 6, and you're getting it hit on that same arm, that arm's probably going to be like more freckly, for example. In my book, I have like different, studies, even one back from the 90s in the New England Journal of Medicine that showed, the closer you live to the equator, the more you're outside, the less chance you're going to get of melanoma, which is a pretty severe form of cancer. And it's showing that it really probably doesn't have much to do with the sun at all. It had more prevalence with people that were under fluorescent lights all day.
Wow.
And that study was before everyone was in front of a computer all day for work, because every job seems to involve a computer now, whereas it didn't like not so long ago. And there's also a Cochrane review, which that review board they collate studies and then make a review on the collated studies. So I think they took about 14 different studies on sun things, and they found basically that the more you use sunscreen, the more chance you will have of developing moles and freckles.
Mm-hmm.
So kind of the opposite of what we're told. And now it's just gotten like people are so afraid, to even be exposed to the sun from like walking from their car to the mall, for example. So we want to, like relax on that a bit, because we do need sunshine, not just the vitamin. I mean, there's just so many nutrients from that light spectrum that we know about that is so astounding. And again, from like activating antimicrobial peptides or amino acids, or engaging with our cholesterol systems, which make it like healthier, because cholesterol needs its sort of vitamin D dance partners and things like that to function in the body. And there's apparently over 12 types of cholesterol sulfates that are created when we're engaging with the sun. There's even one called like lumisterol. And so it's pretty fascinating. And we're going to keep finding the gifts of being with the sun, in the future years. So it's really important to build up that relationship and know too, like what you're putting on and in your body is going to affect your relationship with the sun. And there's also studies that show, there's like a red algae or different colored whole foods are adding to an internal sunscreen that help with your pigmentation and melanin. So that's important too. It's all connected. So when we're in the sun, it is a relationship. It takes two to tango. And it's like, what are you bringing to that altar of the sunshine? And we want, it's kind of like the difference between cooking with coconut oil or like spraying the pan with Pam. We don't want to be putting that stuff on and then cooking in the sun,
Mm-hmm. Wow. It's so fascinating. And thank you so much for all of those incredible downloads. I'm wanting to read your book. It's getting me excited to read it. And I will definitely put the link for this book as well as your other one in the show notes for anyone who is really vibing with this conversation and curious to learn more. So ultimately, the idea is to build up our resilience and really deepen our relationship with the sun, utilizing these techniques that you're discussing and sharing. And until we are at that point, do you recommend, sun protection, whether it be mineral sunscreen or hats? Like, what would you tell someone if they're, working on building up their tolerance essentially, and or they're dealing with a child who, it's a little bit more challenging with your children to get them on a routine like this and might take a little bit more time. So what are the sun protection recommendations that you do that you do recommend for people?
Yeah, so first you want to, engage and build up, and the early, get those hours in. Like again, if the sun's coming out at 9, like it's going to be pretty gentle from 9 till 10. Again, unless you're like in Hawaii, but again, so figure out where you are. Sometimes I like to go, I mean, the noon sun is awesome. And if you only, let's say you have lunch break and you've got like half an hour, get that half hour at noon. I mean, it won't be too long before you can handle a whole half hour. And sometimes I like going out right at noonish, so to speak, because I know I don't have to lie out as long to get as much vitamin D, right? Because it's like you can see it, the IU like increasing every minute. It's like getting more and more and peaking around noon. So I like also getting my sun in before solar noon, which could be like 1 or 1:30 wherever you live. So that to me is the morning sun, like all the way up to about that solar noon.
Mm-hmm.
And for protection, yeah. So building up your own skin protection, and then like thinking about your activity, like a hat, clothing, shade. You definitely, I mean, you might need sunglasses for driving or whatever, but you don't want to be like laying in the sun with sunglasses on too. And that was even discovered back in the 1920s with Dr. Auguste Rollier, who had up in the Swiss Alps in Lausanne, there was a whole hospital where people go from all over the world to heal through sun, even in the winter, and there'd be kids there curing their rickets. And you can even see pictures if you Google that. It's fascinating to see. They're like these black and white photos of like kind of malformation with the bones. And then like 6 months, a year later, the same kids are like, spine straight as an arrow. Even though it's black and white, you can see they're sporting a bit of a tan. And the verandas where everybody's rolled out in these hospital beds, like outside. It's super cool.
Cool.
It'd be cool if they had designed hospitals like that right now. And it was actually like
Yes.
Florence Nightingale was like, wherever there is windows and light is like less, disease and bacteria. So she even started to see that with the architecture. And then we make a thing called Everybody Loves the Sunshine. And so we got two, one's with zinc and one's like a beautiful oil, sea buckthorn. It's rich in pigments. What that can do is like extend your time in the sun. For you, maybe it's just like another 15 minutes. Myself, that could be a whole like hour. And you can't like, olive oil, even on its own, has like a slight metaphorical SPF. We can't quite use that same language because SPF is relegated just for chemicals.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like, it's like that bit of, it's like a bit of an edge. Like it gives you a little bit longer in the sun. It's lubricating. So just know that even olive oil can help your time in the sun, or jojoba. And I write about that in my book. And then we have the same formula, same beautiful oils. And then we've added a non-nanoized, non-coated zinc. And zinc works because, but it's a sunblock. So we got nothing in between. There's no like, SPF, whatever, 23rd, that just doesn't exist in the
Mm-hmm.
natural world. But what the zinc it does is it bounces off, that the rays actually reflect off. So they're not being absorbed into the body. So it actually acts like a block. And then that's handy if you got to, what if you're surfing or swimming and you need to kind of like, do your nose or, different, or your whole body or whatever you need. So you can use that also for kids. But I find like kids aren't like usually lying in the sun. They're not like sunbathing.
Yeah.
They're bopping around and everything. So you think like, where is the sun hitting them? Probably the tops of the shoulders and that kind of thing. So you can kind of map it out that way. But again, let them build up their solar skin and look at the timing. Okay, they're going to be good till 11:30. Oh, they're going to be out all day. Now I'll add the sunblock so that they're getting that vitamin D.
Yeah.
And we really are vitamin D deficient. For example, the number one cause of juvenile diabetes is a lack of vitamin D in a pregnant mama.
Wow.
So like get those bellies into the sun, for example. Yeah, and it can't just be vitamin D supplementation, because again, it's a different type of vitamin D that's created. Definitely up here in Canada, we need vitamin D to take us through the winter. For example, more people if you go to the doctors or the dentist in March, many more diagnoses of cancer or cavities. because you're going in completely depleted.
Mm.
And that's one of the main causes of cavities is a depletion of vitamin D. Vitamin D is so connected to our bone and our bone health. So we really need vitamin D3, and you want to take that with K2. And those are fat soluble vitamins. They're not found in any plant or vegetable. There is a K in a leafy green, but it isn't the same type, for example. So you need that because those two fat soluble vitamins usher minerals into the bones. So without those, like calcium, for example, could just be sort of free floating in the blood, but we need to drive it into the bone because the blood is like the present day. The bones are like, like a long time foundational. So if the blood needs it, it's going to take it from the bone because the body will deal with that later. So hopefully you just got to give something for that, nourishment. And so then it will, take your magnesium and your phosphorus and your calcium and bring it into the bone. So it's like a whole dance.
So beautiful. And the name of this app is D dash like Minder or Minor. How do you spell it? I'll include
Minder,
that
like
as
the
well.
mind, the brain. I don't know if there's a
Okay.
dash,
Okay. D
but yeah, it's
Minder.
easy to find. And it's like a small company, it's just like, I think it's made by the Vitamin D Collective or something, but use it for
Amazing.
years and it's great. And it tells me, for
Beautiful.
example, when the vitamin D is coming back here.
Yeah. This is perfect timing. I'm super excited to ride the vitamin D wave and start building up my tolerance. And this is just so applicable. And I'm really grateful for all these gems of wisdom because this is a portal into a deeper connection with nature, to not be afraid of part of nature, right? And there's so
And
much.
how to use it, sort of like how to biohack those elements.
Yeah.
I just know as a kid, there was so much hype around the sun, or like, of course, we're at, a school and they didn't want us tanning, whatever, but we would roll up our, uniforms. And then we would put tinfoil in like books and like sit there and have it like that. But all the naysaying of it, I always was just like, but it feels good.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's what I just could, so as an adult, I'm like, I'm figuring that one out because it feels right. It feels good. And it is good.
It is good. It's so good. Wow. Amazing. And, you were kind of mentioning this kind of transition to the other topic, which is oral hygiene and oral health, as, bone and mineral health being also connected to sun. And I'm also excited to just hear you give a little bit of an introduction to oral hygiene as well. And I think the term that you use is self-dentistry, which I love. I've been on a healing journey for many years, and so much of my journey has been about empowerment and listening to my body's needs and being able to become my own healer. And that's something that we really encourage for our community through the products and tools that we source, is being able to connect and have a deeper relationship with our bodies to get to tune in and listen to the needs and be able to answer the call. And oral health, wow, I went down quite a bit of a rabbit hole in this one as well over the last year, supporting my toddler in some, developing decay that I was noticing. And I started learning more about the mouth and what it means to care for the mouth. And like a light bulb went on when I realized that the health of our mouths is connected to the health of our entire body. Is for some reason I had never made that connection before. It's easy, like, oh, I have a toothache, nothing else is
I think it's just
happening.
because of dentistry itself. It's just like seems separate. Well,
Yeah.
and yeah, I mean, many dentists just see it as an isolated event.
Totally.
But of course,
It's in our conditioning to think that it's isolated event. And that was really what kind of inspired me to kind of start learning more about how to support my family and in our oral health, as well as just all the different elements that are connected to a healthy mouth and oral hygiene. So what is self-dentistry, and what are some of the tools that you teach, as well as, the products that you create, and maybe an introduction as well to the book itself and some of the the premises of what you're teaching on self dentistry is about.
Yeah, well, I thought of it being a self dentistry in the years before I wrote the book, just to sort of bring it together, because again, growing up, even with our bodies with the doctor or with the dentist, it was just like brush your teeth and then go to the dentist twice a year. And then for many people, you do go to the dentist and it wouldn't be very fun. Or you're like, I don't brush my teeth every day, but I still have cavities and just, but it's like so I wanted to empower people. What are we doing every day? Because that's where the real care can come in. And so going to the dentist isn't some holy, like what's going on inside my mouth, so that we just don't know this part of our body, which is just right there. So,
Yeah.
even like getting a dental mirror and just knowing what's going on with the back molars, like not being afraid of our bodies, and usually some awareness and knowledge helps with that. And then just really trying to really understanding it, like, because I felt like in those early years of formulating and stuff, there was so many parts of the body that I was able to go, oh yeah, okay, so blackheads are probably a bit from a congested colon, or like what can we do to, and then just really trying to map out the mouth, because there really wasn't a lot written. And what was the connection? I found there was a big gap there to figure out. So wanted to empower people in that day-to-day care. And really, it was such a great journey, because I just found these rare dentists that had really pieced things together. And it's also good to understand how cavities are formed and how the teeth are connected to the body, besides the obvious with their roots, like literally they're connected to the body. But how I got this used book from one of my favorite dentists. He wrote a book called Why Raise Ugly Kids. He had a sense of humor. And there was this really great dental chapter. And there was this one page that spoke about when he met Dr. Hal Huggins met Dr. Ralph Steinem. And when he met him, he said, like, all his dental knowledge just got washed away like a castle, in the sand, or whatever that expression is. So Dr. Ralph Steinem was a dentist in the 50s, and he would get severe allergies. So he would close down his practice every August. He just couldn't function. And somebody said, hey, like, maybe don't eat like the white sort of food groups, like I think it was just like classic dairy. Although I'm not saying dairy is bad, but I think, there's issues with the commercialized dairy. So, but like white sugar, white flour, blah, 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 blah. And dairy can cause mucus. So he did that, and like his allergies cleared up. So he was like, he really felt like, he was like, I really feel like teeth, there's a systemic connection, which seems so, it's amazing that it's so obvious, but it had to be proven and gone into. So he actually gave up his practice and did full-time research and at Loma Linda University. And what's really cool is what I'm explaining is now in a book. It's a kind of a rare book, but there's a thing called the dentinal fluid transport system, or the dentinal fluid system, or the dentinal lymphatic system. So there's a lymph system in your teeth, or connected to the whole body. And literally, because we wouldn't think there's lymphatic fluid in our teeth, I think, generally speaking. So what happens is we chew, and the substrates and the nutrients are communicating and activated by the parotid glands, which communicate with the hypothalamus. And of course, the body is like moving the nutrients through the blood. And so there's, that chemical communication happening with the hypothalamus, and then the nutrients going into the blood. And then the blood, obviously the roots of the teeth, like tree roots, the blood is moving to the teeth to bring nutrients to the teeth, because they are bones. And when it reaches the dental, the pulp chamber, which is kind of just basically the center of the tooth, but kind of the juicy part where everything happens. And that's the pulp chamber, is what's removed in a root canal. So they'll scrape out the inside of the tooth and cement it. And it seems like a good idea, because you can keep the tooth, but it's not a hermetic seal. But it gets like bacteria gets trapped in there. So it's actually like basically like putting something rotting in your mouth. But that's another conversation. So you're drawing up the nutrients up through the roots. And then through that process, so it takes about an hour. Once it's in your tooth, it takes like an hour, which is fascinating because that's such a tiny spot, where the blood gets fenestrated and gets pushed out through these odontoblasts. But when it goes into that pulp chamber, it changes into a clear lymphatic fluid. And then the odontoblasts, which I visualize as sort of these like pistons that like push this fluid. It's sort of centrifugal, so it goes inwards and upwards and out onto the surface of the tooth, like this microscopic sweat that then coalesces with the saliva to protect the teeth and see what's weak in the enamel. And there's like doing the work. And so you want to keep your mouth alkaline. It's like kind of salty alkaline, like ocean water. We don't want to get it acidic. Again, you could have drink grapefruit juice, your mouth's going to be acidic for a moment, but hopefully you've got the minerals and the alkalizing minerals in your body to take care of that system and to make your mouth alkaline again. So that's what's supposed to happen. Now, when we have stress, like super stressful times, like for the body, like teenage years or pregnancy, like where the body is doing a lot, that can, that movement can kind of stagnate. Or if we're eating just like no nutrients, no minerals, it will stagnate. But then what happens is that fluid system actually reverses. So then the tooth becomes like a straw and it sucks in from the mouth. So rather this inwards and upwards out into the mouth, then the tooth becomes like the opposite flow. And then you're drawing into the tooth, into the core, like the bacteria and stuff that are just normal in your mouth. So that's what I call the invisible toothbrush, because it's like when that's happening and in harmony, then there's like sort of this buffering agent that protects the teeth and the enamel and the saliva and blah, blah, blah. So that's the goal. But then, we don't get vitamin D, we don't get minerals, and especially these days, we're getting a lot of anti-nutrients. So these are literally like not nutrients, and they're taking. So there's phytic acid, for example, which will rob your body. But one of the biggest anti-nutrient is oxalates. And those will literally create, like, when you eat spinach and then your mouth's like a fuzzy, like a shag rug, kind of like, I don't know, or do you eat, if you've ever eaten spinach and you just have that weird feeling after, or other almost. Foods that kind of create, yeah. Mm-hmm. So that is the minerals leaving your teeth, because spinach is so high in oxalates. It's like this anti-nutrient. It's robbing the calcium from your bones.
Wow.
And so in the past 30 years, especially, we are eating way more oxalates than we ever have in the name of like healthy diets. Mm-hmm. Like think of the raw people having like, spinach smoothies with almond milk.
Yeah.
That's cavity.
Wow.
And you don't think it is. Yeah.
Wow. So, okay, so you don't eat any spinach?
So it's really, no.
Wow.
Spinach. I actually eat like, vegetables are really overrated. Mm-hmm. Especially the modern, like hybridized, like what, and then there's like things like lectins, but the oxalates is really connected to the teeth because it's robbing the calcium. So, there could be people that are like really greening out. Now, some greens are okay, like a lot of lettuce family, arugula, cilantro. So you can find your greens for sure. But like kale, chard, spinach, like I would never eat them again. And they're also very high in heavy metals, even organic. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Because I don't know, there's a special, yeah, they're just bringing it out of the soil. And a lot of organic soil too is like, I don't know how they're classifying it, but there's a lot of heavy metal in organic soil and soil, when they're adding it back in. That's a whole other story, but like kale is super high in thallium, for example. Yeah, and it goes on and on. So more heavy metals, and then your bones are literally getting weaker and weaker. Which, that could take 10, 20 years to really show up. But it could also be like, so again, if you're breastfeeding and let's say you're just super like on your spinach almond milk smoothies every day, then the kid's going to get like more oxalates as well.
Mm.
So so a high, like I really get, I get vegetarian and vegan. I've done that way back when, but I've been there. I get it. But you really got to look at what you're eating to not go down that oxalate pathway, because a lot of the options in that realm are very oxalatey and not giving you the fat soluble vitamins to like back it up. So also, you can never go zero oxalate. It's kind of got to be low because it's in everything. And it's really the plant's pesticides, the plant's natural defense system. And we just can't digest it. If, for example, like sheep in a field, they came across something that was like wild and very oxalatey, and then they ingested it, farmers will invest quite a bit in like calcium IVs to like save the sheep
Mm.
from like dying, basically from over oxalate. So
Mhm.
it's Sally Fallon and Elliot Overton has like lots of information. And Sally Norton, she has a great book that came out last year on oxalate. So that's really like the Bible. But what's key here, and what I think everybody kind of needs to bring in, because and then it takes like about a decade to like get the oxalates out of your body. So what oxalates are is they are, if you looked at them under a microscope, they're literally like little arrows, little shards of glass, like for real. And they will build up, and it kind of like wherever your Achilles heel is, it will show up. So for some, that could be like persistent eczema or psoriasis. For others, it could be joint issues, arthritis, gut issues, because they continually perforate the guts. There's a lot of people in the health realms of like, chasing the leaky gut. And there's so many, thoughts and remedies, but really, if we just didn't eat oxalates, for example, 80% of people over 50 have oxalates in their thyroid. Hearing loss, you're finding oxalates in the middle ear, and on it goes. So we really, most of us probably have a lot of accumulation, and then there's just like the little bit you're going to get each day, even if you're kind of going low ox. So what I understand and what seems to really work is there's just some minerals and vitamins that I think are very foundational, especially to get out the ox and just to prevent that and to keep the bones really happy. Because also women, we've got a double whammy there, because as 40s, 50s, well, really it starts in the 30s, but estrogen begins to wane, and then that also affects our bones. So we, like for women, for sure, we need to really be mindful of the oxalates. But I mean, everybody does. So they deplete B1 and B6. So it's very important to, get those in. And I would say extra and beyond what a good methylated B complex can do. So maybe you have a good B complex and then add another B1, and then the citrate version of potassium, magnesium, and calcium. Kind of have that in your daily, maybe just at night. Those are good things to take at night. Well, maybe potassium in the morning, magnesium, calcium at night. But
In
anyway,
supplement form or in food form?
well, I would say supplement form, because I think we need the extra boost. But there's also like one of my favorite companies for supplements is Paul Saladino's company, Heart and Soil. And so he'll have like, the crushed bone, basically. There's also like pearl powder is a great form of calcium. And so is, you can like get duck eggs or egg, like, just good, clean grown eggs. And then you can look online on how you can prep the shells into a fine powder that can also be a calcium supplement. And it's great to brush your teeth with pearl powder or calcium as well, which we also put into some of our toothpaste. But you really, want to have those alkalinizing minerals really helping with the bone health, because that's like holding up everything, and that's the teeth, the bones. And we really need to think of our bone health, because we're really depleting it through just different things. And the bones are piezoelectric, so they'll also respond really well to different modalities like red light, keeping your muscles strong, help keep your bones strong. Pulse electromagnetic frequencies, it's like called PEMF, is really great for bone health as well.
Mm-hmm.
Just for some biohacking tools.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful. Super cool. And so you have a toothpaste. Tell us about what the toothpaste is and if you have any other oral hygiene products in your product line.
Yeah. So, first of all, just know that in the books there's recipes, and if you just got like a bag of baking soda, and if you use the baking soda for the rest of your life, you would be far better off than using like a drugstore toothpaste. So just know that. And we do make toothpaste, but I just like to have people totally empowered. Any budget can do anything. So yeah, we make a variety of toothpaste. They all have baking soda in them. Some have clay, some have, neem, different herbs. Because it's good to have a variety of plants that, work with
Hmm.
the biofilms and stuff. So what's super cool about
Do you
a
recommend
lot of these.
rotating or like changing?
Yeah, although, but if you have a favorite, that's okay too. You know
Uh-huh.
what I mean? But I think, yeah, rotating, but you could also we also make dental serums. So you could use like your favorite paste. And then we have a few dental serums, which are oils infused with the herbs and the botanicals, which really help to, speed up gum healing. And because we've really got to take care of the gums. We also have swishing serums, which is basically like, upgraded oil pulling. But again, oil pulling, take olive oil, coconut oil, you're swishing. It's like we have an article on our website about that. You can add probiotics to that. You can add a drop of peppermint to that. So you can make up your own. And that really, if you do that for a month, you will totally see a transition in
Hmm.
the whiteness of your teeth, the health of your gums, that kind of thing. So those are yeah, the dental products we have. And then we have like tools like, a non-EMF sonic toothbrush. We also have a manual toothbrush that's got really fine bristles. And we have this blunt tip syringe, which you can make like different formulas and then really get them under the gum line and or in between the tooth. It's almost like a, very simple water pick,
Hmm.
but manual, but it's finer. And so you can, if the gums are starting to recede, then you can get up in the gum line. And, you can email us questions about that. And then there's all the details in the book about that as well. So you want it, yeah. So what's great about baking soda is it's very non-abrasive, even though there's some rumor out there that it is, but like some like sensitive toothpaste are about a 70 in the RDA, which is a dental abrasivity rating. Baking soda 7.
Hmm.
So it's like 7, and some of the gentlest toothpaste are a 70. So it's very soft. And it's great though, because it's an instant alkalinizer, because you want that oral environment to
Yep.
be alkaline. That is, very good for oral health. And for kids, you can there's a fun thing where you can just, brush with baking soda and then kind of like do one round, rinse it out, and then kind of just do a glommy round of baking soda, get it everywhere. And if you just have like a teaspoon of apple cider vinegar, pop that in the mouth, and you get this fun explosion,
Hmm.
like not, not skip it, just this fizzing. I guess that's a better
Yeah.
word. And it's so good at removing plaque from the gum line.
Hmm.
And yes, this apple cider is acidic, but this baking soda is so alkalizing that the sum total is still on the alkaline side. And, it takes like like about a decade, I think, generally, before kids are really brushing every surface of their tooth. So it's good to have those like oil pulling or those whole mouth things that really, or even just rinsing with salt water or putting a pinch of baking soda in water and rinsing with that is very helpful. And it helps when kids can't get every crevice because they just won't. Came out with a toothpaste last year, which I'm really excited about, and it contains the mineral of a nanohydroxyapatite, and the teeth are made out of like formed with a hydroxyapatite. So like 40 years ago, NASA discovered that like if they use it as a toothpaste, it helped prevent bone loss. Um, so it's a great toothpaste, but it was only ever available in like weird other stuff. So I was really happy that we could make a clean toothpaste with it, because it really does help to, whiten and even out the surfaces of the teeth, and it helps to really repair and
Hmm.
remineralize. So I think
Hmm.
that's just a great, part of the collection that can really help bring teeth to a new level.
Definitely. Yeah, I love that one. I've been using it for the last 6 months, and I've noticed just overall happier mouth. So super awesome. How long do you spend on your oral hygiene routine daily?
Well, these days, it's just like, well, you really want to brush for at least 2 minutes. So you
Yeah.
at least got that. And I quickly work through the 8 steps, which we have on our website and stuff.
Uh-huh.
And those 8 steps are just really good if you've got to like, if you've got a dental appointment a few months, like if you can do the 8 steps for about 3 months before you go to the dentist, it'll just be a lot better. And then you can, maybe skip over some issues because you've already taken care of them. So, I mean, just 5 minutes, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And if you do that,
Amazing.
even at just once a day, you're doing that deeper clean.
Yeah.
That's really good.
Nadine, you are a wealth of information. It's been so wonderful just getting to learn from you and hear you share on these really important topics that I am very curious about, and has gotten me very inspired to go deeper and start incorporating some of these wonderful recommendations into my lifestyle and my family's lifestyle routine. So I'm sure that our listeners will feel the same. And I'm very grateful for this time together. And I want to be, honoring of your time. I know we're coming up on the end, but I would love to just get to hear a little bit more about Living Libations as a brand as a whole. And maybe you can introduce the entire product line and even the vision. I was looking before, like the philosophy. It's so beautiful. And I was reading this element, this part, celebrating the beauty of diversity in people, plants, animals, ideas, and ecosystems is one of our core creeds. As we revere the numinous nuances of nature, we also esteem each individual and community with openness and dignity. So I really love that. And it's so beautiful. You can tell just by visiting your site that these are more than just products. And I would love to just spend a few minutes before we close getting to hear a little bit more about the platform as a whole and the brand, and anything else that you would like to share with our listeners.
Well, we love making all that we do and really like, making sure that we're taking care of as many aspects of the body as possible and also having fun. So we have such gorgeous colognes and perfumes. We've got like every kind of beautiful serum for face, body, um, you know, sort of more medicinal blends, meditative blends, chakra blends. We've got our poetic pits, underarm, which is like an underarm charm, another way to experience deodorant. We've made a whole facility where we make everything, which is just so great. I mean, we had a fire about 10 years ago, which was really hard, but like through there, we were able to build a better building and all that kind of good stuff. Yeah, and I'll just be doing this, and hopefully it will continue beyond my time on the planet. We're just, really making something that's foundational and has a long-term vision. And I love working with all of our distillers and connecting the beautiful plants, through the libations, where we can all sort of experience this. Like libations is an outpouring in honor of, something like a deity, or like in the actual meaning of the word. So for us, like libations is sort of this, outpouring of the gifts from the planet, and sort of this outpouring of our own spirit too, where we can, feel that and then bring it back to the earth. And, engaging with those elements is so key.
Wow, it's so beautiful. Thank you. Thank you for this beautiful work that you're doing in the planet, and for this these special products and the lives that you're touching. And it's so beautiful to hear someone like really you've devoted your life to this, that you're planning on continuing, for the rest of your life, and that you hope that this legacy continues on after you move forward from this body. So what a beautiful legacy to leave, these tools, these portals into healing, these portals into our own remembrance and reconnection with our essence as part of nature. It's such a beautiful thing when we have these tools to connect with and to honor our bodies and our vessels and the altar, the temple of this human existence. So it's wonderful to hear you speak and share about it from that place, because I can really feel your love and reverence for this beautiful way of living.
Thank you. Yeah, it's fun, and it's fun to connect, and it's good to keep it fun, and we have options, so it doesn't have to just be like all non-toxic and then sad and boring, but it's a real celebration of life.
Yeah.
And what's
Yes.
growing in the planet and our relationship to the plants and everything. We're all here to like coexist and hopefully better our lives through that coexistence.
Mm-hmm. Amazing. Yes, and I can just share with our listeners, if you have never smelled a Living Libations product, you need to go and buy one and experience it, because the aroma that comes from those bottles, it does feel like that overflowing jubilance of abundant vitality that the earth has for us. And it's a really beautiful experience. So with that, I just really thank you, Nadine. Thank you for your time. Thank you for sharing with us with so much openness and desire to offer and share your wisdom. It's been such an honor and a privilege to get to sit with you and connect in this way, and really grateful to get this opportunity, and want to wish you continued blessings on all the work that you're doing in the world, and all the people that you're helping, and all of the beautiful partnerships that you steward and cultivate with your suppliers, and the people who care for these plants and these beautiful herbs and botanicals, and many blessings to your family and to your beautiful life as well.
Thank you. Well, many blessings to you as well. And it's been so lovely meeting you today.
On behalf of the Four Visions family, we want to thank you for listening to our podcast. We hope you have enjoyed this conversation and have gained seeds of wisdom that will nourish your spiritual path. If you have a moment, please leave us a review, as this helps us to reach more people. For more resources and information about the plant path, and for the highest quality spiritual tools and botanicals, please visit us at fourvisions.com. We are grateful for your support and look forward to continuing this journey with you all. Until next time.